Hello again, my subscribers. Today we are doing a review. Today's review is The Little Shop of Horrors. The cast is Jonathan Hayes, Jackie Joseph, Mel Wells, Dick Miller, John Herman, Charles B. Griffith, and Jack Nicholson. The director is Roger Corman. A clumsy young man working at an impoverished flower shop discovers that the strange plant he has been nurturing has an insatiable appetite for blood, forcing him to kill to feed it. For this week's review, rather than follow up a trailer reaction with a movie review, I decided to take a moment to look at a movie I hadn't seen previously but always wanted to see and talk about an icon. Now seems like the perfect time to do it. Last week, we lost a titan in the film industry. Roger Corman, who passed away at the age of 98, is one of the many unsung heroes in cinema. He mentored and in so doing kickstarted the careers of dozens of filmmakers, including Francis Ford Coppola, Ron Howard, Martin Scorsese, Jonathan Demme, Peter Bogdanovich, Joe Dante, John Sayles, and James Cameron. He also started the careers of dozens of actors, including Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, Bruce Dern, Diane Ladd, William Shatner, and Jack Nicholson, whom we will discuss in this review. It could be said that without Corman, who was commonly referred to as the Pope of pop cinema, the spiritual godfather of the new Hollywood, and the king of cult, we wouldn't have independent film as we know it today. We wouldn't have Hollywood as we know it today. His unique way of making movies has inspired many filmmakers. His method of shooting on shoestring budgets and schedules measured in days rather than weeks provided the template for what we know a Corman movie to be. It's a template used by many other filmmakers of his caliber, including Mark Headley and Charles Band, founder of Full Moon Features, the studio behind such films as Puppet Master and Ginger Dead Man, and arguably Corman's successor. Corman was also responsible for the dozens of adaptations of the works of Edgar Allan Poe, including The Mask of the Red Death in 1964, starring Vincent Price. He was also the filmmaker who first adapted H.P. Lovecraft with his adaptation of The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, entitled The Haunted Palace. However, admittedly, it was also an adaptation of the short story of the same name by Edgar Allan Poe, an idol of Lovecraft's. Corman was famous for handling the U.S. distribution of films by foreign filmmakers like Federico Fellini, Ingmar Bergman, Francois Truffaut, and Akira Kurosawa, all of which inspired the movie brats, including Scorsese and Coppola, Brian De Palma, and both George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. How can anyone forget the snide review about Jaws being a big-budget Corman movie? And what other low-budget filmmaker can say that their movie inspired a musical? In the 1980s, two little-known songwriters put on a stage musical inspired by the 1960 film The Little Shop of Horrors, the movie I'm reviewing today. These were composer Alan Menken and the late lyricist Howard Ashman, who also wrote the book for the musical, famously saying that his tongue was firmly in his cheek the entire time. Many people in my generation were introduced to Little Shop of Horrors via the musical film directed by Frank Oz and starring Rick Moranis, Ellen Greene, and Steve Martin. Years later, Alan Menken and Howard Ashman would collaborate on the Disney films The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. Therefore, we could argue that Corman started the careers of Howard Ashman, who unfortunately died in 1991, and Alan Menken, who continues writing music to this day and has 8 Oscars. With over 300 films produced and 50 films directed, Corman left behind a body of work admired and studied by dozens of filmmakers and film critics. Sure, they weren't Academy Award winners, but they were unique and had their own voice. Corman's influence is everywhere and will continue long after his death. Now on to the review. Made in 1960, shot on a budget of $28,000, almost $300,000 in 2024, and with interiors shot in about 2 days, utilizing the sets left standing from the 1959 film A Bucket of Blood, another Corman film, The Little Shop of Horrors further underscores Corman's talent in making a lot out of so little. The scale feels grander than it is, from the set design to the lighting. The script is surprisingly well written, with effective farcical humor and stakes. Too many so bad it's good movies try to play up the cheesiness, but they have no earnestness about them. Two examples I can think of are Thanksgiving and the Sharknado movies. The Little Shop of Horrors knows what it is, but never winks at the audience or tries to be too clever for its own good. Corman respected the audience too much for that. However, what separated him from filmmakers like Ed Wood was his sense of humor, and that sense of humor is present throughout this film. He wants us to laugh with the movie, not at it, and that's precisely what we do. Yes, much like the ones featured in low-budget movies from the past, the special effects aren't up to snuff even in 1960. But they add to the movie's charm rather than detract, which comes from Corman's instincts and sense of humor. The script is surprisingly well written, with engaging, unforgettable characters and stakes. It's often said that raising the stakes is crucial because it raises tension. The florist's shop is failing. Seymour is a klutz. To prevent himself from losing his job, he tries to nurse a strange plant back to health and bring business back to Mushnick's. But things start getting hairy when he finds out what the plant needs. From there, people go missing, and more people get involved in the plant's never-ending hunger for blood. People more familiar with the musical, both on stage and in film, will be surprised at the twists and turns this movie takes. Certain scenes and characters in the movie are absent in the musical, but they flavor the original film with so much life that it's hard to imagine this movie without them. Seymour's mother is a riot, and relevant today, where God knows how many people self-diagnose. She would have had a field day with the COVID-19 pandemic. Dick Miller is also hilarious as a connoisseur of flowers. I won't tell you what he does to them. Mushnick's role is also more prominent than in the musical, but he's still the same character. Audrey feels slightly underwritten, but given the farcical nature of the movie, it makes sense. The writer of the movie, Charles B. Griffith, provides the voice of Audrey Jr. Yes, that's what it's called in this movie rather than Audrey 2 or Tui. And you will be shocked to see what Audrey Jr. can do. Jack Nicholson plays the role of the sadomasochistic patient in a different but still delightfully funny way than Bill Murray played him. Overall, The Little Shop of Horrors is a perfect gateway into Roger Corman's world and an outstanding film school for aspiring filmmakers who want to make their mark in the world but need to figure out how. So do yourselves a favor and watch this movie while celebrating the life of a filmmaker and producer who still inspires and awes audiences, film critics, and filmmakers alike. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Like and favorite the video if you enjoyed it. Share it with everybody you know. Subscribe today and hit the notification bell. I upload every Saturday, or at least try to. Like the Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Tumblr pages. Please stay safe and healthy. And remember, it's chaos. Be kind.